Welcome, everybody. It's September 11, 2023, and we have two candidates for our city council. We have the incumbent Councilmember Guerra and Elmhurst resident Amreet Sandhu. And we're going to start with Amreet. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'm going to spotlight you.
Okay, wonderful. Hello, Elmhurst neighbors. It's wonderful to be here with you this.
You muted. Wait, stop.
Is now good?
Yes.
Hello, Elmhurst neighbors. It is wonderful to be here with you this evening. I first want to thank you for spending your valuable time with us here today, talking about ways to improve our city and community. We already have that interest in common. As mentioned, I'm Amreet Sandhu. I use she, her pronouns, and many of you know me already. Many of you know what's going on. Sorry, I'm hearing some background
Somebody needs
noise.
to mute.
And if I could have a little bit of my time back.
Yes.
I was just saying that some of you already know me from my leadership as Neighborhood Association President. For those who don't, it's wonderful to meet you, and I welcome you to contact me anytime. Let's win at sacforsandu.com. I will drop that in the chat after my piece. I want to tell you why I'm returning to local politics. It's because we cannot afford to continue along our current path that is just not delivering the outcomes we need. I'm jumping in to make things better. And that is why in July, when launching my city council race and District 6 bicycle tour here at the Cottage Market in our neighborhood, I announced my core values as livability, community connection, and human dignity. I'll apply each value to the questions presented by the Neighborhood Association Board. The first value, livability. There are a lot of examples of the decrease in quality of life in Elmhurst in the last few years, but one I'll pull is our tree canopy. It's suffering from years of neglect and mismanagement. As president of my neighborhood association, I worked with many of you to advocate for its protection, but we did not have the strong advocate we needed on the city council to champion our concerns. And the truth is, if we do not care for our urban forests, we will not be climate resilient, and we must be. Elmhurst, as you know, is also facing a medical center expansion at a time when current concerns over traffic, air, and noise pollution are unmitigated. We need an advocate on our council that's going to make sure the medical center thrives, but also acts as a good neighbor to us. And that's not what we've had in the last few years, as reflected by ongoing neighborhood concerns. My next core value is community connection. And here in District 6, while there have been meetings for the sake of buy-in, for the sake of performative measures to comply with code, many of us have stopped participating because we realize our interactions with leadership neither offer the consistency nor the quality needed for democratic decision-making. What would it be like to have real engagement where our concerns are addressed and then followed up on? Everything about living here would be that much better. Connection requires that we reduce displacement. As we are all aware, the zoning for our neighborhood has changed, and we need to make sure that any new developments in our neighborhood match our community character and solve our affordable housing crisis rather than exaggerate it. Here's what we know is not working: building more unaffordable housing. So let's try something new, something that reduces displacement as outlined in the staff report's objectives 2 through 5, presented to City Council on August 15th. Here I want to reiterate, below market housing is not necessarily affordable housing. We must prioritize affordable housing, which leads me to my final core value, human dignity. I've now talked with enough of our neighbors to know the increase in homelessness impacts us all. We cannot ignore the suffering around us. We cannot continue to shuffle folks from place to place. It's a waste of money and it's harmful. When it comes to solutions, all we've received from District 6 leadership are delays, and there's no time for that. This crisis was created by local policies and it could be corrected by local policies. So let's do that. Let's course correct. And I'd like to just take 10 more seconds to close, if that's okay. I'd like to leave you with this. Sacramento is my hometown. It's where my grandparents raised our family. And as an adult, after college and law school, this is where I've built my home and my garden. When our city makes national news, I want it to be because our city is succeeding, not failing. I want it to be because our city is celebrating livability, community connection, and human dignity. I want it to be because we've done it. We've built a Sacramento to celebrate. So please join me.
Thanks, Amreet. Okay, Councilmember Guerra, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Well, first, I'll go directly and actually answer the questions here. First of all, on question number 1, on controlling densification to protect tree canopies and reducing congestion. I have a very proud record, one, as chair of the Air District, making sure that we were funding entities like the Sacramento Tree Foundation, not only to improve and get free trees and then look at our canopy here in Elmhurst, but the entire region, including fighting for the areas where we have hot heat island effect in the south area. And I'm going to continue to do that as a council member. Second, on the issue on the land use side, when there were proposals to increase the floor area ratio that would have used up all of the land for just housing, I've pushed for sensible policy to make sure that we have a floor area ratio that gives space so we have open space when we're building projects, because I know that every kid, everyone in our region needs to have a shade and open space if we want to address the public health issues. I'm proud of my environmental record. That is why the governor appointed me as the local regional area person to the California Air Resources Board, because I've fought to make sure that every aspect of our city is addressing those issues. Number one, we've made not only the first and second largest school bus fleet in the nation electric, and we're continuing to look at other ways to reduce our emission. I've been proposing, and since I've been on the council, pushing for more funding for public transit. And now Stockton Boulevard will be the first area for a bus rapid transit system so that we can actually reduce congestion. And in the issue of addressing short-term rentals, that wasn't answered at all. One of the key things that I've pushed for is more funding for code enforcement. For those who've come to the meetings have known that we haven't had enough staff to even respond to that. So one, pushing more funding for code enforcement, and even now holding a hearing that we're going to do to review the policy to make sure that we can make the accurate changes we need to do that. On that same token, on the issues of traffic and parking concerns, not only did I walk with the neighbors on V Street, did I bring staff to a meeting, but I have our leadership at the city to create and look at the areas where we have the issues of parking enforcement on V Street or 53rd. And so we're already moving forward to looking at new zones so that the neighborhood parking program is available for those that are impacted by parking. But not only that, but over the years, I've pushed parking to get out of just the central city and make sure that they're looking at our area, because we know we have a different effect. The other piece too is because the UC system is constitutionally protected and frankly controlled more so by the state entities, we've used every little tool we can, such as like access to our public infrastructure, to make sure that they have now, before that they get any more access, a better parking management plan. And I have the commitment already of our public works director to address those issues. On the issue of concerns regarding 2nd Avenue and whether that could be open, I know personally, because I ride my bike through there with my kid every day. I was just there last week going down V Street with my son, what the challenges can be if we open up 2nd Avenue. And I've already been very vocal, not only to our city, but got the direct response from the UC system that we will not be opening up 2nd Avenue because of the concerns until we manage all of the parking issues. And on the issue of landscaping in neighborhoods in our community, I've already reached out directly to our Caltrans staff and looking at creative ways on how we can actually get money to improve the areas of where the sound wall was in. When I first got elected, there was a big effort to get the sound wall in place, to make sure that the sound wall was in place before the Highway 50 construction has occurred. And we were able to be successful because of neighborhood organizing in that effort and in my role as the Transportation Authority. Now I'm going to continue to push to make sure that what we've done in the eastern area, where we've gotten money for cleaning the highway, that we can keep this part of Elmhurst clean. And finally, on the issue of housing, which is our most critical issue, number one, I've spearheaded the first in our city, a 12-acre area where we're going to have mental health, substance abuse, and a crisis receiving center in District 6 to address the issue so that when there is a response, there's an immediate place to go. That's already happening. That's something I've secured with funding from the state, the county, and the city. The second, I'm very proud that we're going to be having affordable housing, mixed income housing, and also workforce housing being built on Stockton Boulevard along the bus transit route so that we have a balanced approach of housing and public transportation to help people that need that effort so that they're not spending their time on the road and they're saving their money for their families to be able to do the things that they need to do. So I'm proud of my environmental record. I'm proud of the work that our team has done. I can't do it. Our little mighty staff of 3 people can't do it, but it's been the work with all the different neighborhood associations that have actually made a change. And with that, I'm out of time. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to put out the call for neighbors to put questions in the chat. And I have to remind everybody, it has to be a question that both candidates can answer. In other words, Amreet isn't in the city council yet. So you have to put a question in that she can answer. But I'm going to revisit, since there's a question here that Eric didn't answer, and I'll have Amreet first, I guess. And that is, how do you feel about restricting short-term rentals to owner-occupied units and not allowing ADUs to be used as short-term rentals? Because right now people are building ADUs and turning them right into short-term rentals. And right now the city is allowing homes that people buy that they don't live in to be used as short-term rentals. And what's your feeling on that, Amreet?
Francesca, I really appreciate you asking me that because it is something I addressed in my answer. It sounds like my council member was not maybe here for that part, but I did mention that our top priority needs to be building affordable housing. That is related to short-term rentals. The city's current policy is to allow a short-term rental for 90 days, after which a conditional use permit is required. I would like to have an ADU in my backyard. I think it would help with any family emergencies that may come up. I think it gives people more flexibility, but it's not a solution to the housing crisis. I mean, me renting out my ADU at market rent is not going to solve the housing crisis.
So you can answer the question I asked. When I mean short-term rentals, I mean like Airbnb and VRBO.
Yeah,
But
and
so
we know
yeah.
that Airbnb short-term rentals create more community displacement. That's housing that could go towards affordable units. It's not something that contributes to community connection. People complain about the rotation of people constantly in the units next to them. Anything we do to create more housing in District 6 must have a focus on affordability. And I don't think that allowing additional Airbnbs are going to make a dent at all in creating more affordable housing. So I'm in support of the current restriction.
Eric, do you want to respond? You did respond, and so.
Sure. I'll keep it simple. I've already requested a hearing to review our short-term rental policy. It was the first attempt, and we were new in the city on doing that. It came in right before I came into council. One thing I did is I also pushed code enforcement to respond immediately to those issues. But the fact is, some people are taking advantage of it. They're buying homes or they're not living in them and then adding 2 ADUs, and that's not okay. So, there is a benefit to ADUs, but we've got to manage it and make sure that it isn't creating this transient nature where it affects the quality of life for the neighbors.
Okay, thank you both. Francesca, have you got another question?
I keep muting myself, so I might make noise. I have a question in from Anita Brown for both candidates. An issue that is directly tied to values and goals both candidates espouse, congestion and air quality, is how to make it easier for residents to leave their vehicles at home. A key issue my husband and I are concerned about is how to make our neighborhood and city more bicycle friendly. Some lanes are good, others don't connect or have dangerous loose asphalt. How do we make our city more bicycle friendly?
Eric, you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. This is one of I've been biking and using it as a form of transportation since I moved to Sacramento, until they stole my bike, and then I had to get another one. But even right now, I ride with my kid to daycare and the other one to school drop off right there and I have to go through Broadway and Stockton. And so what have I done? One, I prioritized changing the way our public works department looked at active transportation. We actually got away from this massive commission and created an active transportation commission. I voted for that change and actually have an active transportation commissioner that have been moving this needle. In fact, T Street in Stockton is one of those now that is on our priority. Not only did I push for a bike lane going, eastward, but now we've already got the public works department making sure that we can close Gerber and make a safer intersection during those problematic areas. For me, this has been a top priority, which is also why I got funding to look at the 5 most dangerous areas in our city, not just in Elmhurst, but Stockton and 47th Street, Stockton and Broadway, Marysville Boulevard that has 2 areas, and then one in the central city to address those issues. So safety has to be the first one. Safe routes to school is one of the things I've fought for in the past 2 transportation measures. Now the measures failed, but I've been a vocal advocate against those who are more driving car friendly to make sure that we have safe places, because I want my kid to be able to feel that he in the future can use that as a viable piece. So I do it. I make it a goal to use it and to also feel like where are the challenges. The last piece that I'll say is
Well,
is
it
Oh,
still
go ahead.
the
Yeah.
same thing? Let's let Amreet speak. Yeah.
Oh, good. Thanks.
I wish I could believe the things I'm hearing. When I was president of this neighborhood association, I did invite our council member on a bicycle audit of our neighborhood. And our transportation in our neighborhood has not improved. Sacramento is a very dangerous place to be a cyclist. I like hearing that there's enthusiasm about addressing that, but my council member has now been in office 2 terms. A plan to do something is not doing something, and this should already be addressed. I should not have to risk my life bike commuting every day. To Anita's question about how to make this she says some lanes are good and others aren't. Well, why aren't they connected? Why aren't our bike lanes connected? Why don't we have a bike map telling people good routes? I moved here from Portland. Portland has a bike map. You can download it. I don't see why Sacramento can't do something as simple as that, and I would be committed to making that happen.
Did you want to answer that, Eric? Sorry.
Well, it just goes to show that all our infrastructure, projects, they're not 1 year. They're not 1 year problems. Our city, unfortunately, was built and expanded at a time where cars became the priority, and that's unfortunate. Now, what I've been proud of doing is fighting that culture and moving backwards. But let's be real, this isn't going to happen overnight. I'm going to do it every day, and I'm going to do it also by being a cyclist with my kids with me to show why that's important. This is why also getting more looking at finding more ways to do things like on Clean Air Day, which is, I'll remind everybody, October 4th, we're doing a big effort to encourage motorists to slow down and also to get more people on the street together so that they see bike trains. So for me, I don't want to give people false promises. I'm telling you, I would always tell everybody what realistically can be done and what we need to continue to advocate together to make those connected lanes. And we see that slowly happening. Unfortunately, not as fast as I want it, but I'll continue to fight for that funding.
Thank you. Francesca, are there others?
There's another question in the chat. And so it's by Simon, and I would rephrase it a little bit so it works for both candidates and say, what are your ideas for getting homeless shelters in D6? Why aren't there any? That's specifically what he asked. But
well, first of all, for those who don't know, we do have homeless shelters in D6. And number one, I was the first one with the Project Home Key to expand and support St. John's. But even before then, I was the one that advocated for over $500,000 to grow St. John's back in 2019 to add a second dormitory, and even then, and most recently, to create the manufactured home village of 50 new units. I also supported Sacramento Self-Help Housing with their scattered shelter. And when there was an opportunity to try to look at vacant space, I worked with the power and the business improvement districts to find land that we could use. The challenge in District 6 is, with the exception of parks, there are very few areas of city-owned public land that that we could use immediately. But I've already working with one property owner that has done that. We also have had an emergency triage shelter on Lemon Hill with one of our churches that has always opened their doors to do that. So could we do more? Yes. What's the challenge with District 6? Unlike other parts of the city, it was annexed. It doesn't have the public land like other parts of the city where the city owns that property, because a lot of it was sold off in 2010, including one of the largest parcels that was in District 6 was sold off in 2010 during the housing crisis. So what do we have to do? We have to entice or work with property owners to lease their land. I've always been supportive of trying to lease land to find places. The question is, you have to have a willing property owner to lease your land. You just can't take it from somebody. And not only that, I made them.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Go ahead, Amreet.
When the Sacramento Bee announced my campaign in June, I talked about how I'm looking at all options to address the fact that there is not enough shelter in District 6. We have 3 encampments at least in District 6. The people living in them would also be my constituents. I would also be responding to their needs. I said to the Sacramento Bee that I'm interested in purchasing private property for use as shelters. We had an opportunity at City Council to talk about some of this 3 weeks ago through a housing support package, which our council member killed at the Law and Legislation Committee that day. It will be delayed. It will come back to council. But as you know, this situation is urgent and we cannot have delays. I would make this a top priority and I would not delay.
Okay, thank you. So,
Well, Patricia, I'd like to correct. I'd like to correct.
One second, you can, because you're going to get a summation.
Okay.
We're almost at the end, and so I want you to put your contact information in the chat. And we're also recording this, and we'll be sending it to neighbors, and people can contact you that way as well. We'll put all that in. And I also wanted to let neighbors know that we are planning to. We're hoping to hold a forum in January 2024. We don't know if there's going to be more candidates for this particular seat. We'll know more in November and December, but we also are hoping to include the Assembly District 6 candidates as well. So, and we're hoping this will be at the Coloma Center. So stay tuned. January 2024. The election will be what? March 5th, 2024. Okay. So now we're gonna close, and that'll be it, and we'll continue with our meeting. But Councilmember Guerra, you go first. And
sure. All I'll say is I'd like to correct the record. First, this motion, this idea that I killed a proposal is outlandish. In fact, I moved the comprehensive proposal proposed by our council member that day, and it was seconded and pushed forward. And it's unfortunate that that someone who wants to be on the city council didn't even show up to the probably most attended council meeting at that time for that issue. But here nor there, look,
I was there. Thank you. And I was participating on Zoom. How dare you?
Yeah.
right.
My whole point is that the record is what it is. And I've been proud of my housing record, my environmental record. I've been proud of also making sure that we're looking for the future and looking at planning long-term, not just for immediate wins, because it's those short-term approaches that I think have failed us. We have to remember that we have to plan for our future kids, not what we are today. And all that is, I live in the neighborhood. I drive through Elmhurst. And proud to be a neighbor and be accessible.
Okay, thank you. Amreet, go ahead and close us out. And thank you.
Thank you. I have a 7 o'clock meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us. You're welcome to contact me anytime. This is a beginning of a conversation. If you like the way District 6 has looked for the last 2 decades, you might want to consider Eric. If you want better, if you want improvement, if you want more livability, more connection, and a focus on human dignity, I invite you to join me, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate both your time for coming and joining us.
And you were so marvelous in keeping in your time frame too. Very good. Thanks so much for you may be going off to other meetings. You're also welcome to join or stay with us. And we meet the second Monday every month.
Right. And we will see both Eric and Amreet in January when we have our more extended voters forum. Usually we get them moderated by the League of Women Voters. We have a kind of formal process and everybody puts in their questions and we get them answered.
All right, thanks. I'm going to stop the recording.